York University. The UNESCO, as you know, is the UN agency for education, science, culture, and communication, and they have an arrangement with about 800 universities and research centers around the world where staff at that university can be appointed as the UNESCO chair to carry out research and to advise UNESCO and to try and expand their reach out into the world. So our particular chair, as I say, is around reorienting education systems towards sustainability.
We're just doing quick introductions. My name is Katrin, and I'm the co-chair of the UNESCO chair at York University. Charles and I we work together, do most lectures together, as it is always easier to do things in conversation and do things together. So we're really happy that everyone is here, and I'm going to hand it over to Hugo if you want to introduce yourself as well. I think, yeah, thank you, Hugo.
Thank you so much, Charles, Catherine, and Anna, for the introduction. So my name is Hugo Chen. I'm the Director of International Collaboration Partnership at the Dean's Office of Executive Science. So welcome all our GLIPS new members and also our participants through our York Science Highland Learning Center. Hope you all enjoy today's event. Thank you.
Hi, Gina. Good morning. If anyone wants to unmute, if they want to.
Yeah, Parmeet has his hand up. Parmeet de Jong.
Hello. My name is Parmeet Dhillon, and I am currently an undergraduate student pursuing biochemistry at York, and really happy to be here and to learn something new.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to go next?
Hi, Gina. Math education and statistics. Between biochemistry and math education, I'm pretty impressed here.
You can just introduce yourselves in the chat as well. Paradise, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, I do. So my name is Paradise. I'm an undergraduate student at York University, and I am currently in my neuroscience program, and I am excited to meet you all and excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. So nice seeing you. Anyone else? Yesha. Biomedical sciences. Yay.
Nice. So everyone's medical science, biochemistry, math. What else? What are the fields that you're coming from? To give us a sense where you're coming from. What's your background? If you just want to type in your field of study, that would really help us. Ooh, another biotechnology program. Nice. Neuroscience, psychology. I'm in good hands here. Environmental biology. Beautiful.
Tian has her hand raised. Go ahead, Tian.
Hi, my name is Tian, and this is my second year at York University. I am studying statistics right now. So that's it.
Thank you. So nice hearing from you.
Yeah.
Hi, Carla. Hi, Ida. Oh, biophysics and chemistry.
Beautiful. That's very impressive. Right? Yeah, don't worry about it. If you guys wanna, don't worry about speaking up or chatting. We're happy to take any reaction. Feel free to join in. This is informal. As you can see, I'm not a very formal person, so I appreciate everyone texting, chatting, do all that. Kevin, you're holding up your microphone. You want to introduce
Yeah.
yourself? I can see that coming.
Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm studying the University of Sydney of the Sustainable Architecture. I'm glad to here to attend the meeting. So it's the first time I use the Zoom, so I'm not sure how to use it. So I just try to figure to change my name and use the microphone.
You're doing well, Kevin. Sustainable architecture, very interesting. Beautiful. All right. Should we get started, Amna? It's up to you. Then anybody else?
Some of my friends, they're from China and they can't attend this meeting because I don't know why. And my teachers asked me that I might explain why this plan they can't attend this meeting. And it's sorry that some of my friends they can't attend this because of they can't attach to the Zoom in China.
Yeah.
Right.
That's okay. That's no worries. We're recording the meet as well, so whoever is unable to join, at least they can watch it later.
Okay, very nice of you.
Of course. Katrin, take it away whenever you feel like it. You are in lead. Go for it.
Okay. I'm handing the lead further and throwing the torch fire first over to Charles to start us off with our lecture.
Sounds great.
Great. Catherine, do you want to put the slides up and
Sure.
we'll go from there? Yeah. So as I said, I'm Charles, and I hold this UNESCO chair in reorienting education, and I kind of explain what the chairs are. So I'll just shoot back over to Catherine then.
Great. If we keep that speed, we're going to keep you all engaged. My name is Catherine, and as I said, I'm the sidekick. We're co-chairing together and a UNESCO chair. The whole idea that United Nations organizations do need continuous, consistent, high-quality research advice. This is what UNESCO chairs provide. So because an organization in itself will never be able to create all the research, if you look at UNESCO, as Charles said, education, science, culture, communication, information, artificial intelligence, the internet, all of these topics, they can't do all the research by themselves. So around the world, there are 900 UNESCO chairs that are working with UNESCO, providing research in their specific themes to support the work of UNESCO, to make it evidence-based and research-informed, and make sure that UNESCO is able to, in this case, to provide high-quality information on education. This is our work. Yeah, today we're gonna discuss the SDGs again. We will have brought 3 Slidos. I'm not sure if you know what Slidos is, but it's kind of a platform where we will be able to create word clouds and some ideas from you, so we can discuss a little bit. And as I said before, any questions, keep chatting, send us the questions in the chat, and we will try to pick it up on the way. And let's get in medias res and into the action.
Yeah, so every year there is a gathering of sort of leaders in the private sector, the public sector, heads of state, and so on in Davos in Switzerland. This is a result of an organization called the World Economic Forum. And one of the things they do is they take polls every year to try and figure out, okay, how can we look into the future and what are some of the risks that are out there. Now, so I thought, as you are all budding scientists, that it would be a good idea just to see what world leaders figure are the risks, both within the next 2 years, that's this column on the left, and what's coming sort of 10 years out when you are established and in the workplace. So if you look, you'll see the purple is technology, and right now one of the great threats to the world is the feeding of misinformation and disinformation and so on. So many people have a difficult time trying to get accurate information to make decisions. The green color, that's the environmental issues, and you can see extreme weather events and so on. Now, I brought these up because 10 years out, you can see the green, half of the 5 of the 10 will be around environmental kinds of issues. Now, that's just not weather, but it could be biodiversity loss, it could be rising sea levels, and so on. Now, the important thing is that for you to be able to also make the leap that these kinds of issues are not going to go away easily. So while there are threats, there are also opportunities for your future. This is where a lot of emphasis, employability, the needs for you to actually feel that you are making a difference in the world is how you could apply your disciplines and we'll come back to this, in a multidisciplinary or even transdisciplinary way to address some of these huge issues. So think of them not only from a depressing point of view, but look at it as a way of sort of your own personal radar of what interests you and where you could move forward. If you put up the next one, Katrin, this is an interesting one. This is where people, they're projecting that they're predicting actually what will be the big issues this year. And as you can see already, we're halfway through the year, but the big one is they're predicting, because of El Nino, extreme weather events. Also AI generated misinformation, disinformation, and so on. So we have these huge issues that are out there. In addition, the cost of living and cyber attacks. And a big one is the polarization, not only between nations, but within nations. So many countries now are emerging as, from a political perspective, 50% one way, 50% the other. So it is something that seeks to, how can we get accurate information into the hands of people? Now, the next one, this, how do we answer? There is a huge challenge about how we can collaboratively create this global systems that will, to help equitable thriving of people around the world, economically, socially, and so on. But the other caveat is, how can we do this without trashing the planet? So we've known about this for almost 50 years now, and we've been working towards it. And the big overarching premise that we have is called development that meets the needs of the current generations, but will also not exclude future generations of having the resources, the energy, an unpolluted planet, so they can meet their needs as well. So I'm sure you're aware, we refer to this as sustainable development. Right? That's the overarching premise. It came about in 1987, and but it's taken some time, and we'll go into a little bit about some of the attempts at trying to implement it. So back to you, Catherine.
Okay, this is the first moment for you that we would like to engage with you. If you we're trying to answer the question and trying to find out a little bit about you, why are you engaged with sustainability? If you could go onto the following website, slido.com, and punch in the code 887-2902. I can just punch it in here as well, 2902, and just slido.com. If you could join me in the Slido, I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm going to move over. I had a little bit of integration issues this morning, so I'm going to start. I'm going to switch over to my Slido. And I'm asking you again, if you see the QR code, you can also scan it now. If you join me on slido.com 8872902, if you could join me there and let me know, why are you engaged with sustainability? If the answer is now, well, I'm not really engaged yet, then just let me know, why would you like to be engaged with sustainability? What would be something that gives you a reason to do something about creating a world and where we're acting today in a way that it won't create a threat for future generations? So if someone could join me on Slido, I would be very grateful. I have the first person joining me. 3 participants are typing. Okay, I can see you're arriving. Use the QR code or don't. Just punch in slido.com under 887-72902. 4 participants arriving. Okay, I can see you guys can do that. Dear future generation of leaders, join me on Slido. 6 participants are typing. If you're not comfortable on Slido, I'm not holding anyone back to just type in the chat. Why are you engaged with sustainability? Why would you like to be engaged with sustainability if you are not yet? Let us know. Okay. You know what? You guys promised me to leave us a few thoughts. Oh, do we answer with a word? Yes, you answer with a word. You just send me a word or send me a reason. Give me a reason in 1 word or 2 words that you would like to describe your motivation or your reason. Why are you doing it? Your purpose. I can see that 8 people are on Slido. Yeah, this is not just a lecture. It gets everyone involved. Important global issues. That's an important, yes. And they are relevant for all of us. We are all connected. As you can see this morning, we're connected from Canada, US, China. We're all over the place. We're in India. Someone was in India. So I can see we're all connecting. Okay. Why don't we move on with the lecture, but you please leave us some thoughts on Slido, or leave us thoughts in the chat. But I don't want to lose more time on that. But please give us a few ideas here. I have 14 people. And here we go. Okay. Here we have a beautiful way of looking at things. I'm just going to go through this real quick. Better home and life. I come from a 3rd world. Yeah, you want to make a difference to help your island benefit for a better future. Future career choice. Charles mentioned that is also environmental health. Future kids. Yes, your own future kids are a reason, but also everyone else's future kids.
I like, Kendra, I love that, to help my island. It's sort of poetic if you think of the whole world as an island, right?
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Legacy, public health, wealth gap. Great. Please keep typing into this poll. Keep typing in. I'm gonna leave it open for now. And if you have further ideas, please leave them. We're gonna share the slides at the end with all of this information, so you can reflect back also to those who couldn't be here today. So I'm gonna leave the Slido open, and I'm gonna move on within the lecture. So, global leaders of science. We are in a phase, and I'm sure you've seen the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals are often called the broader framework around the 17 goals is the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. 2030, so we are in a framework of the United Nations with all member states, all 195 member states unanimously signed on to the SDGs. This is our global action frame that is above our country level, but it's the global community of all UN member states trying to work on a more sustainable world. This is not the first time the world has had such an action framework. The first one was developed actually right after the experts and after many global consultations, people came up with the concept of sustainable development. Environment versus development, working together in a way that we wouldn't jeopardize in the way we were developing, creating economies, that we wouldn't jeopardize the environment, we wouldn't jeopardize social justice. So the first plan ever came together in 1992. And that has been going on into the Millennium Development Goals. And in the year 2000, everyone thought, I don't know whether any of you remember or were even alive at the time. At the time, people thought computers, everything would shut down in the shift from 1999 to 2000. So also the world needed a new action plan, which was then called the Millennium Development Goals, which was again a plan trying to make the world better. And now since 2015, we have been in the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals. So important learning, there have been 3 major global action plans. And there's also, and I'm sure you've heard about it, there's now a specific accompanying plan, which is called the Paris Agreement, which particularly addresses the climate challenge. So those are our frameworks, Sustainable Development Goals and Paris Agreement, our global frameworks. And and you're all in higher education, because education is so important, we have always had additional plans to focus on education, to make the most out of what people are learning, to create a quality out of what people are learning. So people are not just learning for themselves at all levels of education, from primary into secondary into higher education, not only learning to be a better self, not only learning to become a better person, to have career choices, to have a good life, but also in a sense of creating a sense of responsibility. Because if you know you're in a position that you might be able to do something about it. And that's what's bringing us all here together. And I can see your concern about wanting to create a better world and wanting to make a difference. And that brings me to the next aspect of higher education. Higher education is particularly important. If you look into the amount of graduates from higher education, whereas if you look into the whole world, over 8 billion people, only roughly, like if you count all of higher education, maybe 10–15% of people are going to be able to graduate from higher education. However, these people are going to be the leaders of governments, the leaders of companies, the leaders of civil society and institutions. Those people are going to be the artists. Those people are going to be our scientists. Those people are going to be our society influencers, our TikTokers, our Instagrammers. Those people often come through higher education. That's why higher education has a very, very important role to play. And within the concept of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which is our global action framework that we're working on, higher education is particularly called for in topics like hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, clean energy, but also creating economic growth and industrial development, climate action and water. And you can see when you're now going back to where you're all from, psychology, biochemistry, neuroscience, what else do I remember, sustainable architecture, all of these fields, you might be able to find yourself in these topics and actually feed into the SDGs. The research that you will be doing, the research that you've already done, might be able may be able to inform the SDGs. And also higher education is particular because we've always shared knowledge. We've always been the one collaborating with one another, no matter often what the political climate, what the countries at the political government level are doing. Scientists and academics often stick together, and we can weather through political tension. We can work, we can collaborate, we're able to share with one another. We consistently exchange because we know that we are better together. And you being in higher education, that is particularly important because you will be this majority of the leaders of the world. You will be part of that. So your influence and the way you're creating your studies and the way you're planning to go into this world and how you want to make a difference, beyond having, of course, having your career, developing all that, but maybe you're going to be the ones really being able to make a difference from your expertise, from your science, but also with all the other things that you're learning and working together, cross borders, and connecting with students, with other researchers from other countries. One further aspect, if you're thinking about connecting worlds, imagine the UN and especially UNESCO, and this is just the Canadian example. Imagine the world sticking together like with spider webs. UNESCO networks are throughout all levels of society. There are UNESCO schools in most of our countries. There are learning cities. There are creative cities working at the community level. There are natural heritage sites like biosphere reserves, geoparks. There are cultural heritage sites, especially when you think of UNESCO, you often think of cultural heritage. Old buildings, old heritage to hold up. So if you start looking out, you will see that the United Nations have actually created a network of all different levels and of all different layers that is holding the world together. And all of our countries, if I'm just thinking on the three right now that I'm aware of that are at the table today, China, Canada, and India, we all have national action plans on how our countries and how our civil societies can contribute to the sustainable development goals. And that is particularly important beyond our specific discipline, beyond our specific field of research, but we as people in that concept of United Nations and in that background of higher education, we can really make a difference out there together.
Right. So in each of these 17 goals, first of all, the context is that think of a patchwork quilt. Each individual goal is important, but just taken in isolation, it's not going to really make the big difference that we need. So we have to think of the 17 as an overarching framework. We need to work on all of them. Now, each of the 17 goals, they have targets, and the one for education has 7 targets and 3 other ideas they want to pursue, like scholarships and so on. But in the 7 particular targets, 2 of them jump out, and one of them is 4.3 talks about tertiary education being equal and affordable around the world. Another target is this 4.7, which is knowledge and skills for sustainable development. And this is to be infused in all aspects of education. That's what Catherine and my work is upon. How do we embed the pursuit of sustainability across all levels, from preschool to lifelong learning, but in particular, as Catherine said, the importance of higher education. Now, if we go to the next, you'll see we call it education for sustainable development, and it comprises of different aspects. The first of the thrust is to make sure that everybody in the world has access to at least secondary school. Right? That's where we're going now, to access to quality education. Because without an educated public, it'll be very, very difficult to attain sustainability. But the problem also is that it is our most educated countries that are creating some of the greatest threats to the future of the planet, through our development and what it is that we are bringing into being. So the idea is how do we reorient what we think of as quality education? What are the underlying premises of why humans should pursue what they should like, worldviews, what's important for us, and so on, to be able to question that. And we'll come back to that a little later. The third one, though, is public awareness and understanding. If we are going to move forward, especially in a democracy, we do need very informed people with access to good quality education. And the fourth part of what we call education for sustainable development, the fourth part is training, where we do know how to do things better, whether it's road building, architecture, or setting medical standards, any of that, where we do know how to do it better. And in a context of sustainability, then we need to train people. So part of your education would sort of fit into this training program as well. And most of you in your professions will go through lifelong training aspects. So you can see the importance, because science, keeps developing and changing as it moves along. Now, as well as this education for sustainable development, we're also, though, simply knowing the facts is not enough. And so what we're trying to do is to look at how we can embed in our education system a willingness to use that information, to become engaged, to become involved. And so we brought forward this concept of global citizenship. Now, this isn't a threat to, having to give up our own national citizenship. No, it's a state of mind. It's a feeling of engagement and concern for people all around the world. So we want to bring together, we want to unite the knowledge and information and the skills of education for sustainable development with the willingness to become involved as a citizen, to take part. And also, we need to give young people and people of all ages, but the skills as to how to actually become citizens, to bring your message forward, how to articulate your message, how to form in groups and gatherings and so on. So this is an extremely important part. So these two things, bringing them together, we think, and embedding it through all education, through your courses, what you're taking now, and thinking about how this kind of knowledge, skills, and willingness to engage can become embedded in your courses in higher education and in your life when you graduate.
Great. Thank you. So you've already had important learnings, and I'm just going to wrap them up before, and warning, we're going to move to the next Slido in a moment. So important learning. The current Global Action Plan are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Within the Sustainable Development Goals, quality education, which is Sustainable Development Goal SDG 4, Quality education is extremely important. It was even so important that it was negotiated before the SDGs were finished to make sure that quality education can really be the key enabler to make a difference for everyone, because only if we know ourselves and if we can become an educated public, we can create those changes that we need to become sustainable societies. Two concepts are relevant. One is education for sustainable development, often just called ESD, and the other one is global citizenship education, looking at the democracy aspect of it. Okay, and I'm going to open the next poll. I am going to open the next poll, and that question, and I'm going to go back to my Slido screen. That question is, why did you become a global citizen, or why would you like to become a global citizen? This is the next question, so I'd like to ask you again to return to slido.com 8872902. And I'm seeing participants typing again. 2 people have arrived. If you give me feedback, if you can get to the Slido, or if you can't get through the Slido, just leave a short text message. That's also important. How did you become a global citizen? Also, why did you become a global citizen? Make a better environment. Yeah, that's extremely important. Make a difference. I can see you are engaged. Promote unity. Yes, because also if we look at leave a legacy, if we look at sustainable development, it is the 3 dimensions: environment, economy, and social dimension, the social dimension, the creating a balance within, engage with global topics. Yes, uplift others. Beautiful. Better unity. I think the idea of unity, the idea of balance, that is really important. And also coming from higher education, while you're typing, I just want to say that people from higher education, no matter whether you are in a formal position of leadership, or you're leading a technical team, or you have some title that determines you as leader, when you come from higher education, you're often perceived an honest broker of information, because you will have that degree one day. People will believe what you say. So it is extremely important to take that into account. We're seeing we're all living on the same earth. Yes, we're all on the one planet. Nice. Okay, so I think I'm gonna keep you typing, and I wanna move on to the next topic, because that kind of builds into what you're seeing, making a difference, exploring places and culture, leave a legacy, because that is exactly what the UN is trying. And as you feel free to keep leaving more ideas, I want to explain to you the topic of how we're, oops, have I arrived? Yeah. Of how UNESCO is dealing with that. Because for the longest time, we have believed just because people know, they will do the right thing. But if we're now, and that's a very simple example, if you think about health and health and eating and healthy life habits, working out 4 hours a week is the recommendation to live healthy. How often do we know? But it's a whole different ballgame to actually do something. And that is what UNESCO is tackling with if we look into sustainability. In order to know about it, and I assume we all know quite a bit about the environment. We know quite a bit about environmental protection, about climate change. But what does it take to actually become active and become a global citizen and do something to do that? And that takes more steps. It takes not only the knowledge, it takes the ability to critically deal with a topic, to analyze it, to really get to the bottom of the problem, to also see it in different circumstances, to understand the context. And then that's why I particularly like the comment on exploring culture. It often takes an experiential exposure. It takes you to be in places. It takes you to having to meet people, to actually start feeling a sense of emotion, start feeling a sense of connectedness. And then, only then, you are able to develop the compassion. Compassion means that it starts mattering to you that other people or a different region in the world has a problem, has a challenge to deal with, and it becomes as important as it was your problem. And then, only then, people start doing something about it, and people start becoming active. And just if you think about your own experience, if you've been in a place, if you've been in another country, when that country comes up on the news, you always think of, oh, I've been there and this is important to me, and you start listening. Sometimes you even start doing something about it. So the whole idea of creating a global compassion, that when something matters somewhere else in the world, it matters so much to you that you, whether you're in Canada, China, India, or no matter where you are, you start doing something about it from your particular field of expertise, and you want to start making a difference. This is what we need to create, and that is kind of the next step that we need to get to in education. Not only knowing, being able to analyze, but start seeing the problems of this world with a sense of compassion, and dedicate our professional lives and trying to do the best we can do in order to make that difference that you're all suggesting to make as today's and future global citizens. A particular topic that is important is the whole topic of climate change. And so we're starting to work in a way as UNESCO is starting to ask young people, reversing the classroom, starting to ask young people, what are your sustainability issues that are the most important to you? And over the last years, climate change has become the overwhelming topic for young people to engage with. So UNESCO is particularly looking at climate change education to move not only into a full understanding, because only half the world's curricula, and if you learned about climate change, you're in the upper half, because only half the world's curricula do have information and learnings about climate change, only half of them, although it's such an important topic. And students want to learn about it, but they also, coming back to global citizens, they want to be able to do something about it and learn how to do something about it. And that is what UNESCO is working with. And very quick side mark, if you see the picture, a young man with the Earth behind him, planet Earth, you see the typos. These pictures, we're starting to work with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence can create beautiful pictures. What artificial intelligence hasn't figured out yet is English spelling. So it's really interesting when you put in youth demands for climate change as a climate change education as a call, you get these kind of pictures. We encourage you to play with that as well if you have time. But the idea of learning from young people what is important for them for the future of their lives, and adapting education in a way that they can deal and can feel empowered being able to do things. And that is also all of the last relevant UNESCO reports, all of the last global reports that deal with how we reimagine our future, how we want to be in 2050, how do we create a future that feels livable, that creates a positive outlook for all of us. They all say engage with young voices. And that's why it's so important to have groups like you that actually are able to meet, that create that voice of young educated people that care about the world, and learning with and from them to create not only a good experience throughout university, but to learn what matters. Because again, you are going to be the leaders in this world. In just a few years, you're going to be in leading position. You're going to have influence. So we are learning now from you, and we encourage you to share. And again, groups like this are the anchor points in order to get the message out of young people. And I'm moving over to the topic of sustainability science.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tailoring our talk with you today. Of course, wanting to go back to the role of science, and not just physical sciences and natural sciences, but the social sciences are extremely important. I think you understand that, as Catherine was alluding, sometimes we have the knowledge, but we don't necessarily change our behavior, right? So this is a really complex way of trying to bring about that kind of global transformation that we need. But part of what we're looking into is, how do we progress from simply telling people about the concept of sustainable development and having students memorize the Brundtland definition of sustainability, as development that meets the needs of the current without limiting the future. So how do we move from simply science about sustainability to actually science for sustainability with a definite purpose of trying to bring about a more sustainable future, and not only for humans? Sustainability and sustainable development does have its limitations, and we need the critics, right? This has to be treated with science. There's so much wrong with sustainable development itself, in that it's human-centered. It's all about the future of humans on the planet. And it's a vague concept, sustaining what and for whom. These are things that really need to be discussed and brought forward. We have a long way to go in really refining the whole thing. But it's really important that we take this on in a scientific way, but including the social sciences and political sciences as well. But they need facts to be able to build on. One of the things, Catherine, if you move on to the next one, is the idea of purposeful science. So we can spend billions of dollars in research, but if it is, what are the priorities as to what we need to actually research and move forward in? And so we're putting forward the idea that nothing should be more important than a sustainable future for all forms of life, but primarily, for now, for humans as well. But as well as that is the methodology. And one of the things that is proven is, if we can build on 4 billion years of research, this year, look at how things actually operate in the world around us, in nature. Right? And what can we learn from the adaptations over the years? And I love the examples of, there's no one on the line from Japan, but in China, we have the high-speed bullet trains as well. And the nose on the high-speed train that came out was based on the beak of a kingfisher, where it could dive right in and get more depth, piercing in the water to get small fish. And that nose is perfectly designed for high speed. But the problem, in many routes in Japan go through a lot of tunnels, and the wind resistance of buffering back and forth, the trains had to slow down. So they redesigned the nose of those trains that go through a lot of tunnels, and it's on the bill of a duck-billed platypus. This is an Australian animal that can go through small, shallow creeks without throwing up a lot of waves. And so it doesn't attract attention to itself. And by changing the nose on the front of the trains, they are able to shoot through the tunnels without the wind baffling and so on. So the idea of the research, aligning it, checking with biomimicry, the purpose, why are we doing this? What are the implications in bringing this forward? And what should really go into the STEM that we want? Catherine?
Yeah. And as we are also arriving in the world of artificial intelligence, I just want to encourage you to consider where you're working in the field of sustainability, to explore the opportunities that are there in a responsible way. As GIYS group Global Leaders of Science, when you're writing beyond your own discipline and you're connecting to the Sustainable Development Goals, there are platforms out there that you can test. They are partially even research-based, so they are learning with you and from you to enhance future research. You can run your own text through, for example, linked SDGs, or the STI or SDG platform that is in the lower left corner. You can run your own text through, and it comes out with the information of which are the SDGs that your text is addressing. And it's like, as you are tapping into this broader place of maybe trying to influence policy, as you're writing beyond your own particular discipline, those platforms might be quite interesting to explore. Also, ChatGPT, we all don't know how ChatGPT will change our lives. Fact is, many people are using it, and it can be used in a responsible way. It is now citable. So even using a platform like this is a citable action that has, for APA and Harvard and whatever the citing mechanism is, has now its own way of making sure that it's properly sourced. So dealing with that, also seeing the limitations, as I just shown you on the Microsoft Image Creator. You know, Microsoft Image Creator cannot do English spelling for whatever beautiful reason. It can do pictures, but it cannot do English spelling. So starting to responsibly explore these kind of fields is really interesting, and you may be able, from your particular discipline, to bring in new views that no one has tested yet. The idea of gamification. Financial Times has an interesting climate game out there that puts you into a position of being the minister for sustainable development in a country, and you have to deal with all of these wicked issues that you can't do it right to the one day, and that every solution faces a trade-off, and trying to gamify what is possible. Or the En-ROADS, the lower right corner, the idea of how can we influence our societies? What if we change our way of dealing with energy in the country? What impact will we have on global warming? Testing all of these platforms, dealing with them, being familiar, being knowledgeable beyond your particular discipline, and maybe having new ideas for that come from your background, that we would like you to encourage to consider. The other aspect is everyone solves problems in a different way. Everyone looks at problems in a different way. For everyone coming from wherever you come from, your particular worldview is unique. It's the constellation of what you have learned, what you have experienced, but working together with people from different backgrounds, even if you are in the same discipline, that might really engage and widen your worldviews, whatever you're doing, even math. There's a UNESCO chair on the culture of math, doing research of how different cultures solve the same mathematical problem in very, very different ways. So bioscience or biochemistry, everything also brings along an aspect of culture. And it brings an aspect of the history of the place. So considering also during your time as you're studying science, studying abroad, connecting to other corners of the world, also exploring what are going to be your future career pathways, and showing that you can work well in international teams. Also interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary teams, and showing how you can interact with others is something that, as global leaders of science, will be extremely important for the entire career that you're aspiring to have. And on the notion of multidisciplinary, I'm handing over to transdisciplinary.
Great, thanks. Yeah, one of our great problems that we realize is that simply doing the science that we've done for years, doing it better and reaching more people is not necessarily going to be the answer. This is the worldview and the thoughts and so on of what got us into the problem. So what we really do need to do is to consider how do we get new approaches and new ideas that can parallel, at least we can judge back and forth. So how do we generate actually new information and new approaches? And so one of the things that emerged about 50 years ago was the idea of transdisciplinarity, right? So if you think of disciplines all working in their own particular field, that's fine, and doing pure science research, we need that, okay? But we also need to listen to people in a different discipline as to what they're doing and so on, and then taking that idea and applying it in your own discipline. And so learning from one another's approaches, we refer to as multidisciplinary, and then putting together teams of different people to work on trying to do better things, we refer to as interdisciplinary, right? But what we really need is to also, as well as these three stages, which are each important, I'm not saying we stop all that and we move to something else, but we do need to consider the idea of not only bringing the academics and expert in the field together in an interdisciplinary way, but also the engaging with the people who are going to have to implement it or the change will affect and come on and affect them, and hearing their voice as well. So sometimes this is the place where we reach out in traditional knowledge of villages and so on, and see what has worked for the last 1,000 years and what is the basis, what was the understanding, why did it work, or traditional ecological knowledge, indigenous wisdoms, and so on. Those are aspects. But how do we bring that together in a transdisciplinary way to actually come up with a whole different new form of knowledge that will give us another opinion, another approach that we really should consider. So this is emerging now in ways, but in order to work in a transdisciplinary way, you will also need, and I think this will be the way of the future, but you also need interpersonal skills. It's very, very difficult to bring together people from different sciences to work on a common vision. It is proven where it has been undertaken that it's hard to involve people from the community and gives them a respected voice. So it's not simple, but once again, it's a skill that one will need. Now, not only our approach in the research, but the other thing that we really need is how in higher education, as Catherine pointed out, how important it is for higher education because of the shapers of so many of our future leaders. To date, often what has happened is that universities have had sustainability clubs, or there's been a group that look after energy or gardening, or some particular aspect of a sustainability issue. It could be equity or inclusivity, right? Diversity, those particular social groups and so on. It could be those that are working very hard on equity issues around tuition and trying to reduce the fees and so on. But the idea that we really need is to bring these together in a much more unified way, so that we bring together what is going on in teaching, in our coursework, yes, our research, our community service, but also how operations work at the university. When you go to get lunch, is it all plastic? You know, this kind of thing. And even the investments of the university, as we see now with Gaza, the youth rising up and questioning what is happening and becoming involved in society in this way. So we need to think about, and it's usually referred to as a whole institution approach, but we're just scratching the surface. We need the student body to bring forward what are the issues, but not just the issue, what are possible solutions, and to have the skills of bringing about that kind of change, because that skill will help you considerably in the workplace later on to be meaningful, to leave a mark, and to bring about change without being fired on your first day. You know, so it's important that we explore these kinds of skills to bring about the transition that Catherine was talking about.
Okay. Yeah, and as we move into our last Slido and into our very last topic, we're going to talk about competencies. And I just need to start the Slido here. Just a sec. Zip. Okay. So the Slido is running again. And I'm going to take, while you guys are able to type in, the question of competencies. What do you think? We've established that. Why do you want to be engaged? How did you get here to be a global citizen? How did you develop your concern? And now comes the question, like, what do you need? What are the competencies? What are the skills that you need in order to make that difference, in order to go ahead? What do you need to know? What do you need to be able to do? How do you need to be, and how can you be together? And the first results are coming in very nicely. And I'm going to use that chance as I'm talking through the moment. I just want to remind you what we've gone through. So SDGs 2030 agenda with quality education, education for sustainable development, global citizenship. In order to move from knowledge to action, we need an exposure, we need compassion. There's such a thing as sustainability science, dealing with the wicked issues, the complex issues in our world. And we're moving towards a sense of transdisciplinarity, all academic disciplines with all the knowledge of the community, not only defining the problem, but solving the problems together, and looking at sustainability at 3 levels: economic, environmental, and social. So those are the big learnings that we would like you to take away from today. And as I'm seeing here, open mindset, transdisciplinary thinking, collaboration, endurance, active values, understanding, safety, concern, openness, sacrifice, respect for one another, humility, critical thinking, awareness. Those are the skills that you're suggesting that we will need as sustainability competencies to be able to be engaged, to become global citizens, to become concerned people of this earth. Complex system thinking, a beautiful one. Also, leadership is changing. We can't, in an educated public, you're not doing things just because someone tells you to. You are doing things because you understand their value, because you understand this is important. You're not following orders blindly, but you need to understand. So the idea of leadership not only being order, but being a work in partnership is something that is coming forward in that whole context as well. And as I encourage you, those who want to leave a few more words, I want to show you how right you are, because UNESCO has come out with an overview on skills, on competencies that is now going to be part and integrated into education systems in the world. And as I'm seeing here, decision-making skills, critical thinking, respect for diversity, anticipatory skills, citizenship skills, collaborative skills. You were right on with the skills that you were foreseeing. And if you see those learning objectives here, those sustainability competencies, those are the ones that are now the ones, and they're agreed upon through a formal recommendation. This is the catalog of learning objectives that education systems now, in that sense of pursuing sustainability, will further embed, will infuse at all levels of education. So in adapted ways, how to learn how to respect diversity at primary level. What does it mean at secondary level? What does it mean in higher education? This is the catalog, and it's beautiful to see that you were right on with your ideas, and the important aspects that future leaders of this world will need. And again, the open mindset is also a beautiful one that kind of reflects on the self-awareness piece. So that is the catalog that we want to leave you with, because if you ever want to self-reflect, what should you be able to do? These are this is the competency catalog, and we're going to finish off our part with a little story.
Yeah. Catherine a moment ago mentioned ecological footprint and so on. I think we all realize that everything we do really has a footprint on it and so on. But I love the story. It's a number of years ago now, when in teaching about the ecological footprint in a class in India for elementary school students, the teacher was talking about if all the people in India lived like they do in Canada and North America and so on, we'd need 4 planets and so on. But this little girl in grade 4, actually, she said, "But I have hands." And she said, I could have handprints. I could do something to overcome my footprints. And the teacher realized the simplicity of this, but the positiveness of this. And so the teacher, they painted their hands and did the usual thing, but she went to a non-government organization and teamed up with them. And that NGO went to the Ministry of Environment in India, and they started a whole campaign on the ecological handprint that is so uplifting and so positive. And that spread into Africa, and it is spreading through Europe and North America and so on. But I just want you to think, and as you go through life, of the education that you have, the opportunity that you will have, and the idea of how you can make that difference with your own individual handprint, reaching out and joining handprints of many other people and building it into that positive thing. It is not all negative. If you start looking at the progress that we are making, there is progress out there, and it is coming, but we need much more concerted efforts from on into the future. But anyway, thank you so much for this opportunity to join your class. And Catherine, should we offer to stay for a little bit? And if there are questions,
Yeah,
or
thank you.
comments, it doesn't have to be a question. If you like to share something, and
For sure. Thank you so much, Catherine and Charles. That was very informative and very engaging. I'm sure everyone was very engaged throughout the whole presentation. I was just wondering if anyone wanted to go ahead and maybe talk about anything that they've learned or anything they found interesting within the presentation today. I feel like Charles and Catherine would really appreciate anything that anyone has learned today.
You can also just type in the chat, so don't feel required to speak up. Okay, go ahead.
Hi. Sorry. I just wonder. I have already said I studied sustainable agriculture, but actually some resources are unreplaceable or unrenewable. Like we can't replace like the wood to other materials. So in future, to make it more sustainable, how can we reduce or replace this kind of material in just find new resources or have other actions? That's my point.
Yeah, that's one of the weaknesses of sustainable development is how do we deal with non-renewables? So wood we can renew. We just have to be careful because it will grow. But other minerals, for instance, we can't. So that has to sort of be an overarching or overriding concept of whatever it is that we are producing is not only is it renewable or not renewable, and what is the footprint of getting the material? Some forms of for instance, uranium mining leaves terrible ecological footprints into the future. So it's the getting the material for nuclear work, also the disposal of it afterwards. Even concepts such as concrete is one of the great building materials globally. But the world, we're running out of sand. It's hard to think of it, but concrete, you need particular kind of sand. And secondly, how do you dispose of concrete? It's a huge amount of energy and a huge amount of energy into making it. So what we need to be thinking about is the whole life cycle of whatever it is that we are producing, and do we really need it? All right. So, Kevin, your question is a great one, and it pokes a hole sort of into that whole thing of sustainable development. Because normally, if it becomes scarce or difficult, the price goes up and things shift over. But you're right, there are some things that once we get rid of it, it is gone. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm really appreciate. And can I ask a second question?
Sure.
As we live in a complex system or a complex society, and I have learned from equation, means appetite equation, and it means the environmental impact equal to the population times affluence times the technology. And it seems that everyone knows that the new technology might perfect or improve our living standard or making it more sustainable. But actually, when I found out, like, I have an example, like we used to have the fossil vehicles, and now we have the new energy vehicles. But actually, the new energy vehicles, they also use like the fossil fuels to put the electricity to use in the new energy vehicles. So actually, sometimes the technology helps to improve the sustainability. It's a fake one. So how can we find out how the technology role in how the technology role plays in achieving sustainability.
Yeah. I'll take a quick grab at this, Catherine, and if you want to come in as well, because this is what Catherine was talking about with wicked issues. For many of them, it's not cut and dried. It is trade-offs, one against the other. Yes, electric driven, whether it's vehicles, trucks, or whatever, as we move more and more towards electricity driving things, we have to take into consideration where is the electricity coming from? Is it coal?
Yeah.
Falling water, whatever. And many of the islands of the world, they have no choice. There is no falling water. They're atolls and so on. But in the big picture, what we have to do is to build that kind of compassion for what is our global footprint. And so in some places, the countries like Canada, where we do have falling water, and we also have oil, the trade-off of what will how quickly can we move away from fossil fuels without collapsing the economy of that particular region? What do we replace it with? It could even lead to the breakup of the country as certain sections feel that they're being picked on and so on. So it is that the wicked issue being there is no one clean thing. It's a trade-off for now with the science we have and the issue we have. This is the best for this particular time, but bring on the science so that we can improve.
Yeah, on the other hand, the necessity of things is also something, just because we're able to develop new things. A beautiful example are the scooters, those electric scooters that you find everywhere in the cities. They haven't actually taken anyone off other transportation. All they have changed is that people even walk less and use those scooters where they would have walked before. So they have actually increased our ecological footprint, although they were thought of at the beginning to reduce ecological footprint somewhere else. But all they have done is taken away the regular human energy of just moving yourselves from point A to point B. So those kind of questions, like where are things, like whereas if we stick to transportation, where is it necessary? How far do we have to go in being moved around instead of actively moving ourselves around? Those kind of questions we should never forget. Just because it's possible, it doesn't necessarily mean it's necessary and it should be there. Those are underlying value questions that we should never forget in this broad field of science, because so much is possible. What of it is needed?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kevin. Parmeet, you also have a question or a comment. Please feel free.
Just a quick question. So I understand that the whole initiative is to create this cohort of research institutions to actually drive and have a set of information upon which the goals can be built on. Do you think that the communication of the information that York University or other universities gathers, do you think that's just as important as implementing the goals? Like having the common person know that this forecast, like one of UN's forecasts into the future, is an immediate threat rather than it being simply a forecast. Like I remember during grade school, we used to have debates related to UN's and forecasts, right? And the opposite side would always say, "Oh, it's too far into the future. Anything can happen in the future." Do you think that this is a common issue to communicate to the common person?
Catherine, or?
Yeah. It depends. I'm a lawyer, so my answer is it depends. Overall, the criticism of the UN goals have always been kind of naively aspirational. is certainly one level, because as much as I wish to, in 6.5 years, to live in a sustainable, a peaceful, just, and a diverse society, as much as I would hope for that, as much I know that might not be the case around the world. So having those aspirational goals has always been a difficult discussion within the UN to begin with. Then the other aspect of feeling connected to the UN. I feel it's depending on where you are in this world, the sense of connectedness to the UN is very different. Like my goddaughter, she goes to school in Germany. Every day for them ends with the SDGs. Every day they kind of arrange the last 5 minutes of their day. What did we learn for the SDGs? Where was this important? And so the sense of connectedness is very automatically there, because they also connect to other schools all the time. So it depends on where you are in the world and how your particular setting is, if you feel that sense of connection. The third aspect of communication, I think it's extremely important that universities like York and other universities keep putting out that information. That brings me back to the honest brokers. Because if university professors say so, a lot of people just start believing. If a scientist says something, that has a value. If a university says something, that has a certain value in society. And so I do believe it makes quite a difference when universities commit to these global action plans and are active. So sorry, long answer with the 3 levels of communication.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Hello.
Yeah, I think people also have to start leaving. I want to be respectful of everyone's time.
Of course, I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. I wanted to thank the York Science Hanen Learning Center, the Global Leaders of Science members. We have visiting medical students from China who've joined as well. The team from the Office of International Collaborations and Partnerships, and as well as Charles and Catherine. Thank you so much for this informative presentation. I'm sure we had a lot to take away from it. And thank you for making it so engaging. I admire that everyone, had something to say and they could participate in some sort of way and really get their thoughts out there while the presentation was going on. So thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your week, and I will be in touch with everyone.
Sure.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Bye,
Right.
guys.